Hello, bom dia and welcome. If you follow my channel, you might know that I've recently been in Portugal for some holiday. This is not a travel channel, though Social Blade thinks it is, but I wanted to share with you a few things I visited while I was there, particularly a very cool retro museum. I was based in Coimbra, the former capital of Portugal, until Lisbon was crowned as the country's capital back in 1260. Coimbra is also famous for its university, the oldest you can find in Portugal and the second oldest in the world after Bologna, in Italy. Located at the top of a hill, which I enjoyed climbing many times, the old town centre is a very picturesque place to visit with many things to offer. I didn't miss a tour of the stunning Joanina Library, which cannot be filmed unfortunately, and the Royal Palace. One of my favorite places was the Botanical Garden, perfect for a walk enjoying the many specimens of plants available. I thoroughly enjoyed walking on the beach and get some free vitamin D, even though the weather was worse than I thought and sometimes it really felt to be back home in the UK. To keep me busy, why would you want to be busy during a holiday anyways? I also attended a Portuguese language course. Last time I learned a new language from scratch I was 6 years old, so that was fun. Let me say hi to my classmates and my teacher for the great time together. I couldn't be in Portugal without a day trip to Lisbon, and sorry if I couldn't meet all my viewers there. It was my first time there and I only had a few hours to explore. Maybe next time. However, I managed to have a meal with Pedders, one of my viewers to whom I promised my last C64 saver from this very old video. It was nice to meet you and I'm glad the gadget I gave you is working, finally saving your Commodore 64s. When I mentioned on my channel that I was in Portugal for a holiday, one of my viewers mentioned the LoadZX museum and they recommended I should visit it. After a quick look online, I discovered that the museum in question is located in Cantanide, just 20 minutes from Coimbra. As you can imagine, the ZX in the name refers to the ZX Spectrum, so that was right up my alley. I contacted the museum asking if they were happy for me to bring my camera. João, the museum's curator, welcomed me to the museum, confirming that filming was okay and offering to meet me on site to show me around. So, a rainy day, I drove to Cantanide and met João and Bruno at the museum. As you can imagine, the museum is not dedicated to just the ZX Spectrum, but to the whole life of Sir Clive Sinclair, a British inventor who has recently passed away in 2021. The ZX in the name was used as the ZX Spectrum was one of the most successful products of Sinclair research. I'd like to thank João for his time showing me the museum. It's a magnificent place, nicely designed and decorated, and packed with Sinclair history. The display begins with the early products of Mr. Sinclair. Books, amplifiers, calculators, watches are some of his early inventions. Most of them were breakthrough in the industry back then. The calculators, for example, were the first portable ones powered by watch batteries. Sinclair developed a clever way to save energy to make that work. Remember, this is the 70s, Japanese calculators were not available yet. Some calculators were awarded for their design. On display here, a unit with the Queen's Jubilee logo. And by the way, most of these earlier products were sold in a do-it-yourself kit with instructions on how to put them together. Here you can see a wearable FM radio. The strap has disintegrated over time and only the circuits have survived the pass of time. This is 1980, way ahead of time. Sinclair portable TVs were also popular items, including the latest model with one of those fancy CRT tubes where the screen was placed at an angle allowing for a narrower design. Sinclair also developed electronic tools like multimeters and oscilloscopes. They were mainly sold under the name Sinclair, but also Thunder, which is now Thurbly Thunder. And guess what brand of bench power supplies I have on my desk? Now it's time for Sinclair to enter the computer market. On this section you can see the first very limited machine he developed, the MK40. The ZX80 and ZX81 were developed to feel the pulse of the business and see if there was interest on computers. Those were very limited machines with no sound, no color, 1 KB of RAM, and where the screen would flicker at each press of a button because the CPU could not deal with both the graphics and the keyboard at the same time. The experiment was successful though, and the ZX Spectrum was released in 1982. It was the first color machine with 16 KB of base memory and lots of expansions available, including the microdrive, which was never popular, maybe because it never worked very well. The ZX Spectrum is one of the most successful products from Sinclair research, selling 5 million units over time. In the museum, you can see everything about the ZX Spectrum, including a magnificent display showing all the board revisions for that machine. That includes a hand-drawn issue 1 PCB, serial number 899, which is the 12th or 13th of the known ZX Spectrums on this planet. That is so impressive. There are a lot of free projects for the ZX Spectrum on the internet. I built my own ROM replacement PCB with the help of my sponsor, PCBWay. If you find a Sinclair related project which needs a PCB, well, take a look at PCBWay.com. Getting a PCB is super easy even if you're not skilled. Just find the Gerber file of the project and upload it on PCBWay.com. The system will process the file automatically, and all you have to do is to select the postal service, and that's it. Super easy. PCBWay will then deliver your shiny boards at your place. Take a look at PCBWay.com and don't forget of the other services PCBWay offer, like 3D printing and metal sheet fabrication. The link is also down below in the description. Thanks to PCBWay for helping this channel, my videos are possible thanks to their help. Sinclair computers were hugely popular, so it's only natural that they were also hugely cloned. On this display you can see Sinclair machines from all around the world. Some were authorized copies, some were not. One of the reasons for a museum dedicated to Clive Sinclair in Portugal is Timex. Timex Corporation was an American global watch manufacturer, and Timex Portugal opened in 1970. Timex was the main Sinclair contractor for the manufacture of the ZX81 and ZX Spectrum in Dundee, Scotland. In 1982, Sinclair and Timex entered a joint venture to attempt to penetrate the US market and markets where Sinclair was not present. Timex Sinclair was born. The US market was not an easy one, so the experiment ended in 1984 after the release of the TS-2068, but Timex Portugal continued manufacturing and developing Sinclair computers under the Timex Computers brand, which were mainly sold in Portugal, Latin America and Poland. On display you can see the TS1000, where TS stands for Timex Sinclair, a ZX81 with 2 KB of RAM, and the TS1500, a ZX81 with 16 KB of RAM. This briefcase with the computer and some accessories was sold to professors in the US. The TS2068, based on the ZX Spectrum, was entirely designed for the US market, but also the last computer to be sold in America before the joint venture dissolved. Sinclair products were not all successful, of course. One of the products which didn't meet the market approval is the Sinclair QL. QL stands for Quantum Leap, and it was Sinclair's attempt to enter the business market.
You are about to witness Sir Clive Sinclair's Quantum Leap. He's come up with a computer to rival these machines at a fraction of their cost. The Sinclair QL system, with a massive 128K memory, color monitor and 4 professional software packages, £698. Phone 200-0200 for your nearest stockist.
Linus Torvalds, the creator of Linux, have mentioned how important the Sinclair QL was for his work. The machine was launched with many flaws. The microdrive, which was supposed to give the machine fast access from a tape, never really worked well, maybe because of how the tape was running inside.
Well, from the Spectrum to the QL, and welcome, Sir Clive.
Thank you.
Now, last week David Carlin was here and was telling us that most of the initial problems with the QL had been overcome. Has it in fact been relaunched?
It's been relaunched, yes, in the sense that we've now got all the software, we've overcome all the problems, I may say, not just some of them.
In 1986, Sinclair sold the computer division to Amstrad, who started turning them more into gaming machines than they were before. The ZX Spectrum Plus 2 and ZX Spectrum Plus 3 were all developed and sold by Amstrad based on the Sinclair legacy. The museum is doing a fantastic job at describing the journey of Sinclair and its products through time and around the world. There are so many machines on display: Sinclair, Timex Sinclair, Timex computers, and all the more or less authorized clones from all around the world. Successful products, failed products, niche products, as this unit based on the ZX Spectrum, which was used by a local radio, or the FDD3000 unit, which was basically a Z80 computer without graphic, which could run CP/M when powered up without a floppy. Behind the round door, which reminds me of Pac-Man, there is a little recreation of a typical 1980s Portuguese home. A visitor left an appropriate comment on the screen, I shall say. Next, we have a small showcase of non-Sinclair computers, the usual suspects which deserve a mention. But most importantly, the first Portuguese computer, the Iner 1000, manufactured in Figueira de Foz, which I visited during my stay, followed by the UNIC, which stands for Universidade de Coimbra. The main engineer behind this project stepped down as Dean of Coimbra University just in recent years. The following room is showcasing the current Sinclair life. I wasn't aware that there are over 200 new software being released every year for the ZX Spectrum and many modern alternatives to a Sinclair machine. The ZX Spectrum Next in particular looks stunning. The case was designed by Rick Dickinson, the same person who designed the ZX Spectrum and the Spectrum Plus. The museum has on display a prototype board of a Next Issue 0. And yes, the museum is also showing those very famous and very unsuccessful inventions from Sir Sinclair. Sinclair Vehicles was apparently very busy developing until 2002. Here is an electric motor to be retrofit onto a bicycle, one to be fitted on a wheelchair, and even a device to swim underwater. But the most famous one was of course the C5, developed with Lotus. It was a very curious vehicle which was never popular.
The Sinclair C5, £399.
Along its many flaws, the fact that weather is not one of the UK's best features, and that raised more than one eyebrow. This unit comes from the Netherlands, where it was allowed to run on roads, but with the mandatory orange flag to make it more visible from larger vehicles like a truck. It does feel dangerous. LoadZX is expanding and another room is now available with more items belonging to Sinclair and Timex, who together fundamentally changed the computer industry back then. If you happen to be in the area, I thoroughly recommend a visit to LoadZX after you had some bacalhau and a pastel de nata. The museum is a gem and I thoroughly enjoyed my visit there. I'd like to thank once again João for his time and for creating the museum. It's a beautiful project and I hope it gets the success it deserves. Needless to say, despite the somehow British weather, I thoroughly enjoyed my time in Portugal. I felt very welcome and I look forward to my next visit there. I hope you enjoyed this slightly different video than usual. If you did, you can find some Sinclair repairs on my channel, which you might also like. Please leave a thumb up if you liked the video and subscribe for more in the future. For now, thank you for watching, have a great day and see you again soon for my next videos. Obrigado, até logo!